YouTube, what is good? Today we are talking about editing your Moody street photos. So I posted this set of photos to my Instagram and my Twitter recently. Each one of these photos was made during the filming of the last photo vlog, which I posted Friday. So if you want some behind the scenes and some explanation of these photos, you can check that out. I linked it in the description of this video. But all these photos were edited using the exact same process. So today I'm going to show you what process I used to edit these images. Our example photo is going to be this image from the set. We're going to take the photo from this to this. I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. It's pretty simple and straightforward, no BS. I'm not going to try to sell you a preset. We're going to teach the real thing so you can take it and apply it to your own photography. If you guys want to know, this is the camera we use to make all those photos, the Fuji X-H1, and also the sponsor on our channel today is Ranft.com. Yes, my own website sponsored this video. Head over there, pick yourself up a sticker or a print or something like that. Supporting Ranft.com supports the channel, and that means less ads in videos. That's why this video only has one ad instead of two. So shout out to everyone who has supported the site. So let's jump into Lightroom. Let's get to the first step on this photo, a little bit of cropping and a little bit of basic adjustments. Get our photo to a nice starting point so we can really go into the more intense editing. So Lightroom, let's get it. So this is our starting point for this photo. Now we're a little bit far back. I explained why in the vlog, so make sure you check that out. But first thing I'm gonna do is crop this photo to a square, get our scene a little bit tighter, our subject a little bit closer. Now I cropped it to a square, and if we're using the rule of thirds, I positioned our subject right at this intersection point of these four squares down here. The next thing I'm gonna do is use our spot removal tool right here to remove a few of these distractions from the photo really quick. So this fire hydrant thing right here we do not need, so we're going to paint over it. Going to make sure our brush is on heal mode and let Lightroom do its thing. That works. Same thing with this sign right here. This sign is completely unnecessary, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it real quick. Lightroom does its thing once again. Perfect. That looks good. Next up, we're going to do our basic adjustments. So first thing I'm going to do is change my white balance very slightly over to the warm side, just a little bit, and a little bit of a change on our tint. Not much. Right about there looks cool. Gonna drop our contrast just to take a little bit of contrast out of the photo, make it a little bit less punchy because we're gonna add some in later, as you will see in the tutorial. Next up, I'm gonna bring my highlights up just a little bit. We're gonna boost everything on this. Instead of doing a general exposure boost, I'm gonna control the changes to our highlights, shadows, blacks, whites individually instead of just a general raising of the exposure. Going to bring our shadows up just a little bit here. I'm going to bring our whites up just a little bit. And we're going to bring our blacks up quite a bit. Right about there. And last but not least, on our general adjustments, our basic adjustments, we're going to bring our saturation way, way, way down. Right about there. That looks good, and I would call these basic adjustments complete. So now we got the photo at a good starting point. We're going to jump back into Lightroom, use a little bit of split toning to enhance the mood of our photo. You guys know I love split toning. If you want to find out more about split toning, there is a tutorial on this channel all about it, so you can go check that out. So back into Lightroom, let's add some mood to this photo using split toning. So to add in our split tone, we're going to swipe down here to our split tone area. Now today, we're going to make most of our split tone adjustments in the highlights because obviously this image is primarily highlights. There are some shadows, but not a ton of shadows on this image. So what we're going to do, click this box, drop a point in, and start moving around. Now I use the eyeball test. I look for what I think looks best with the image. There's no real science to it. It's all a creative expression. So for me, I'm going to scroll around here. I think this looks pretty good, this color, but it doesn't need to be that saturated. Maybe right about there, kind of a subtle effect. You can always check the before, after. I think that looks pretty nice. Next up, I'm going to do our shadows just a little bit. This is going to be a very slight adjustment. Once again, drop this in, move it around. Very, 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 very subtle. Maybe right about there. I think that looks good. Then we can change our balance back and forth. If you go one way, it's going to be more towards the highlight. This way, it's going to be more towards our shadow adjustment. I'm going to go, I think right there looks pretty good. Before, after. Feeling this now, it just added in the slightest bit of mood to our image. So split toning is complete. Now we are on to the most important step of the edit, which is graduated filters. We're going to use multiple graduated filters in this edit to enhance the contrast, enhance the shadows and the highlights of this photo to really bring out the mood, add a more mysterious vibe, and also bring more attention to our subject. This is going to be the longest part of this tutorial, but also the most important. So strap in, let's jump back into Lightroom, let's transform this image, let's give it a little bit more of that moody vibe. So now before we work on our graduated filters, we are going to apply some vignette onto our photo. Vignette, you guys know I don't know how to say that word. We're going to add just a little bit on here to draw your eye into the center of the photo. So vignette adds some darkening to the edges of our image and brings our eye into the center towards our subject. Now we're going to enhance that effect using graduated filters. So click up here on graduated filter, and if you've never used these before, this is how they work. You drag a graduated filter onto your photo. You can go ahead and click Show Selected Mask Overlay. This will show you what area the photo is going to be affected. And now gradually a change you make to the photo will be applied to those areas. So the adjustment will be more intense here and then gradually fade into your photo. It's great for adding in some shadow and some isolated elements into your image. So we're going to make sure this filter is set at the right point. I think right about there looks good. Now systematically we're going to use 5 different graduated filters to add to the moody feeling of this image and the subject isolation. We're going to add in a lot of shadows, a lot of highlight. So this first one is going to be our biggest adjustment. We're going to bring our exposure way, way, way down. So right about here. And we're also going to bring down our highlights. And we're also going to bring down our shadows. Now this is why I made this adjustment. If we delete it, notice how naturally the image is becoming more dark towards the corners. So by adding this graduated filter, we're just enhancing that effect that was already taking place on this image. So there we go. That looks good. Go ahead and click that. Now you can see our subject is much more isolated. It's clear that he's in the middle of the photo, but we need to do more to really make it stand out and intensify this effect. Now what I'm going to do to enhance this effect is apply another graduated filter to the same side of the photo. Now notice I don't go as far into the image with this graduated filter because I only want it to affect this corner of the photo. So what I'm going to do is bring my exposure down even more, but it's only going to affect this selected piece of our image. And I'm also once again going to drop our highlights and our shadows a little bit more too. So highlights down, shadows down as well. So now notice it's very dark on this edge of the image and then it gradually goes into our photo. Now we need to counterbalance this effect that we've added to the right side of the photo. You're probably looking at it thinking the same thing as me. It's a little bit too dark over here and I would 100% agree with you. So we are going to drop in another filter over here, drag it far onto our photo to counterbalance that change we just made. So let's go right about here. Now this filter is going to increase our highlights as well as our shadows. So we're going to bring highlights up to, I think right about there looks good. And we're also going to bring our shadows up to right about there as well. Now notice what we just did. We just brought up the highlights and really brightened up this area. So we have a dark, a bright area now. What do we need to add? Another dark area over here to really isolate that subject. So we'll click done and we're going to drop in 2 other filters. One going to right about here. Let's check it. I think that looks good. We're going to bring the exposure down and our highlights down just a little bit. Right about there. And right about there. Click done. Now we're going to add in one more graduated filter to this photo. Notice how far out we went on this last filter. This new one is going to only affect about half of the previous affected area. So just about there, and we're going to bring down our highlights on this and we're going to bring our shadows down without affecting our exposure. So I hope you catch on to what exactly we're trying to do here. We're applying one large adjustment with a graduated filter. So in this case, this is a large adjustment, and in this case, this is a large adjustment, and then we're applying a smaller adjustment on top of it to create an even more impactful gradient. So we make an exposure adjustment here, and then we make an exposure adjustment here. Same thing with this. We make an exposure adjustment here and then an exposure adjustment here to really darken up that corner and give us some subject isolation. So let's click done and notice how dark our edges are and how nicely isolated our subject is. And this tree right here really helps us out because it kind of adds some separation in the light. We can really darken up this area and it doesn't feel strange because we have this tree cutting off the highlighted area from the shadowed area. So it's pretty obvious how big of an impact these graduated filters made on the overall feel and mood of our photo. This is the image before. Now this is the image after. We were able to add in a much more mysterious vibe to our photo, a little bit more darkness, while also isolating our subject and making them pop a little bit more in our scene. Now you might look at this photo and think we are done, but there is one other thing that we need to do. When you make big adjustments to your photos like this, sometimes those adjustments can affect other pieces of your photo. So let's go back into Lightroom one last time to make one final change that will really wrap up and complete our photo. So before we can call this photo done, there's one more thing we have to do to it. Notice up in this top right corner, we have this light right here. Because we made such dramatic changes to our exposure and our highlights, this light is kind of blown. It does not look good at all. So what we're going to do is hit our spot removal tool once again. We're just going to highlight right over that light right there, let Lightroom do its thing, make a selection. I think that looks pretty good. Go ahead and click done, zoom back out. Much better. Distraction is now removed. And bang, there we go. Our photo is now complete. That is the exact process I used to edit this photo, as well as all the other photos in that photo set. What I would do now is I'd take these settings, copy them, paste them onto another photo, and then edit them accordingly using similar or the same settings, keeping the split tone the same, the vignette the same, maybe taking out some of those filters. But there we go. It's straightforward. That's the exact process I used. Now remember, this is a 10-minute or however long it is tutorial. Typically on a photo like this, I would spend more like 30, 45, maybe 60 minutes perfecting all the edits on the photo. So just remember that while you're editing, even though this video is 10 minutes long, it can sometimes take much longer than that to get the result you're going for with an edit. So if you want to know more about the editing techniques I use for my photos, I have an entire playlist on this channel. I've also linked that in the description of this video. And also make sure you check out the vlog with the behind the scenes to this photo. Once again, I linked that in the description as well. Do me a solid, guys. Hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button for more photography videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it helped you out, and I will see you guys next time.